It's always a pleasure to be with you. For those new into this space, it's an open forum. You can ask any question, beginning level to elite level. To keep it organized, we ask if you take turns, raise your hand so that I can bring you in and we can all share in the knowledge gain. We also have Robert with us assisting me in the chat. So if you have any questions and you do not want to come forward, you can always ask it. He will answer or relay the question and we will go forward. For the rest, everything that we cover, again, I offer as part of follow-up documents. I'll give you all the links so you'll be able to go over what was previously said if I refer to previous conversation and also be able to review what we will be covering today. Good for everybody? Perfect. So we usually start with a round of questions. So if you have any, we'll start with that. There should be some, I think, spanning from last time. We had a very good conversation around email CRM list. So if you have questions around that, we'll start with that. Or I will continue a little bit on that process. I did have a few meetings that covered some of the questions around emailing list and such. And I think it's something good to keep hammering in so that we gain an understanding of what we do with these people that we acquire, convert, or retain through the process. Good? Questions?
Not so much a question, but I do want to add that on Friday's meeting with Adrian and stuff, I did bring up what was brought up here during the Tuesday and Wednesday meetings. So we may be seeing the ability to search for lists coming very soon.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, then it's going to be even better that we cover what we are discussing today because searching for lists is not just randomly searching for something, it's going after a specific objective, right? And being able to organize these objectives, I think, is something that we want or need to start wrapping our minds around, especially with the limitation that the tool may have or what we may consider as limitation. Okay, so I'll give it a few seconds or a minute for any potential questions. And then as usual, I'll dive into the conversation and it's always an open channel. So at any point in time, you can raise your hand, ask question on the topic or off topic that I'm covering. Good? So going once, going twice, going three times, sold to silence for now. I'm pretty sure there will be a couple of questions that will come through a little bit like what happened around the last conversation. We were covering the idea of using properly or understanding properly the CRM that NowSite offers and how to create a flow of work around that. And one of the things that I started putting in the ether there, big words, segmentation, right? Segmentation is a word that you will come across this marketing world. It applies in many forms. Market segmentation, you heard about that, right? How do we separate our market? Client pool segmentation, prospect segmentation. It's a big word just to say, how am I slicing my pie? As simple as that, right? Whenever we approach an activity, it is considered as a whole, right? How do I divide this whole into pieces that I can gradually start working or pieces that make sense overall in the flow of work that I'm trying to create? Okay. In this case, I'm going to be focusing on the list and the email because the list also have an added purpose. We're not just organizing people in those lists. We are preparing them for something, right? And this is important. So just to give you an idea, I started with this pie chart just to make you understand that in the end, since we cover three stages in what we're doing, right? The first is connecting with people, bringing them in, acquiring them, bring them into our space. Once we have created this connection, we want to convert, make them buy into an offer, accept an offer, right? Depending on how many levels this offer could have, it means that they might be going through the cycle of conversion many times. Conversion, for example, for first level of class, second level of class, third level of class, right? These are conversion process. But in the first cycle, we go from acquisition to conversion. And once we have started or completed the first sequence of the onboarding process, we fall into retention, right? And as it is normally, since acquisition is what we are trying to do on a regular basis, the volume of acquisition will tend to be big. Conversion is a portion of that first acquisition pool, the people that will opt in into the conversation. And when we are done with the cycle of onboarding, then we are looking at retaining them, right?
We lost you on audio for some reason, brother. Virgil, or is it on my end?
We lost him, Robert.
Virgil.
Yeah, we lost him. I don't think he can hear us either.
We lost you on audio, brother.
Or am I not hearing?
There you go. Now we hear you.
There we go. We missed you for 3 minutes.
Oh, you couldn't hear me for
No.
Sorry about that. It might
Start at the beginning of this slide. You're good.
Yeah, so it could have been a little bit of the lag in the internet there. So yes, so I was saying, in the end, what we're looking at basically is separating our list in a core to the activity, right? We generally have three type of list in a core to how the prospect will come in, right? We always are wishing for that first straight line from contact to conversion. But truly, when we acquire a prospect, we will go through that first phase, discovery, building the rapport, and such, until we get them to commit to an offer. Once they have committed to the offer, then we are going to be looking at retaining them, growing them through the relationship. To that effect, coming back to segmentation, if we're looking at list wise, we should be looking at three lists. This is why I keep coming back on these values: acquisition, conversion, retention. And I'm going to start putting numbers in perspective because we need to understand the limitation or how our NowSite email tool will work in a core to this volume, right? There are rules, there are a little bit of strategy. It's not hard to understand, but you need to go through that process at least once to learn the mechanic or the workarounds. Now, technically, from what we discussed, the acquisition list is something that may start as 0, but will grow into well beyond 500. I'm using that number because it's a number that is tied into our system. We'll come to that. And most of us in this space have come across the idea of list set at 500. We're going to go over the understanding of why and how to go beyond that limitation, or what to expect when our lists are going beyond that limitation. So your acquisition list, as put forward, will always be called to be more than 500. The conversion list is basically the result of what you're doing with this growing number of people, converting at a slower rate than the acquisition, right? Because we cannot convert at the same rate as we acquire. We are going through that process, connecting, building a rapport before we try closing the sale, right? So your conversion list usually is the most active part of your list. It's the one that you're looking to see if people are coming in. And when they are coming in, you are committed to interacting with them until you bring them to the last list, the retention list. So for example, if I'm giving you a course, I will invite you to interest you. Once you give me your interest, I will solicitate the conversion. This will go to the onboarding process where I gave you the directives on how to find us, sign in, join us for whatever meeting it is. And then we'll put you on the retention list where you will get notification, follow-ups on what was discussed and what is to come, inviting you again to the future sessions, right? The retention, upsell, reorder, long-term conversation, right? Remember in the previous session, I told you that technically the acquisition list and the retention list are the one that will grow in numbers. The one in the middle, the conversion list, which is a transition list, will tend to fluctuate, right? Very important. So keep that in mind. Technically, if you're creating lists, the only list that should be kept and monitored and kept at 500 would be your conversion list because you're getting people in and out of that list to the retention one, right? And also, it should dictate what we're going to be discussing next, the length of your email, right? A campaign. Keep in mind that, again, we have a specific restriction, 500 per day. This restriction, however, is tied to the email that you're using. We recommend Google. Why? Easy to use, a lot of other tools and such. And this is their set in by default account limitation. You can only email out 500 email per day from your regular Google account. Okay. Now, keep that in mind. If you're going to be emailing that volume to acquire, you want to make sure that the campaign itself is something that you can monitor, adjust as it runs its cycle, right? Because if I'm trying to convert you after acquiring you, right? I need to go through a series of steps, a series of emails in sequence to see when you will convert. Are you converting on the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth? And usually at that point, I want to come back and see what has happened. If my email campaign goes beyond 5, it becomes a lot harder to come back, review, adjust. Okay, only go beyond 5 email. I recommend when you are very comfortable with what you're doing, right? And you have tested the sequence enough time to know what happens after that 5th email and adjusted that in a okay. Keep in mind one thing as well, and this is important, right? We're going to do some basic math here. If the email account is set to 500 per day, and you can contact 500, you can send out 500 emails per day, okay? What happens when your list goes beyond the 500? That is usually the big question or the big issue here, right? What happens in that space beyond that number? Now, here, just to review before we go forward here, right? These are the limitations that you will see in the email tool. Understand what these limitations mean. The 500 is the 500 set daily per email account that are synced to the system. The total synced amount here, which you see is 45,000, is basically the whole of these emails that are synced as a bulk. So you see that it will go beyond a certain amount of monthly email, depending on how many emails you have, email accounts, you have the opportunity to connect. This is important to understand for the next step, right? Because we're going to do like a little bit of probability assessments and projections, because this is important to understand what we're doing, right? If I can send 500 email daily for a total of 30 days, right? Well, take out the 31 day for the month to have 1 day in plus. We're looking at 15,000 email monthly. That is a huge volume of email, right? Now, probability or what we will hear out there, if you Google what is the ideal conversion rate for an email or an email sequence sent over time, you really will look at 15 to 10%. And this is at the acquisition stage, meaning that I don't know necessarily these people that I'm sending these email to. I'm just sending it in mass and trying to figure out or think about what is going to come back in. Right now, these can be up for debate. You can go take a look at it, but the mechanic is still the same. For a set volume of email that I'm going to roll out, there's only going to be a partial return of people that are first going to open that email. After opening that email, that percentage will drop again to the number of people that are going to actually go through the conversation and opt into any offer within, right? So we have to keep that in mind. And you'll see that basically we start going down in numbers from 15,000, 15% brings us to about 2,250 opened email. If we apply again that 15%, because to each action, we apply the 15%. So I roll out 1,500 monthly. 15% of that are likely to be open. That's 2,250. Out of those, 15% are likely to convert and engage. So you see that the number of email will break, the number of opening rate or conversion will break down. Thus, the idea of the acquisition list, because we need to keep that engine going, is always something that we're going to be filling in, adding into. And naturally, those who convert will go from that list to the conversion list. And I can track that. You can track that within the system. Why? Because you're sending them those conversion call to action. Most of us in this space have a CRM with NowSite and a CRM with the activity that we're promoting, right? Naturally, if I send you a link to convert, and that link is, for example, something outside of NowSite, well, once I convert, my name will appear in the CRM attached to that opportunity. At that point, depending on what that opportunity offers as tools or email sequence, you will be looking at your conversion or onboarding process there. However, when it's done, you're going to be looking at taking these people from that outside CRM and bring it back into the NowSite CRM for the last part, the retention process, to go into another round of reorder or upsell. Okay, so keep that in mind, right? Regardless of the volume that you're looking to send on a monthly basis. Last time we were discussing and somebody said, well, 30,000 might not be enough. I said, first reach the 30,000. Understand how from 30,000 you go to actual rollout, conversion, retention, right? Because that's a lot of emails. And in all honesty, with ourselves, when we roll out 15,000 emails, whether the person converts on the first email or the last email, we're not expecting 15,000 response at rollout. This is important for what happens next, right? Because the idea here, which is important to understand, is that when you're setting your sequence in email, this is the default setting that we recommend. You have the first email that is rolled out immediately. You have the second email that follows a day after, and the second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day. Now, this is, for me, an aggressive campaign. Because if we limit ourselves, for example, at 500 and underneath, right? These people in these lists are going to be receiving an email every day, right? So if my conversation is not properly aligned, I might be heavily soliciting them. Keep that in mind. Second, if my list is less or more than 500, and this is usually where the confusion will set in. What happens if in my list I have more than 500 people, right? And I have a campaign set as such: immediate, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, and such. In the general understanding, we have the expectation that, for example, if I have 1,000 people in this list and I'm pressing send, I expect that these 1,000 people will receive that email on the first day. Why? Because I'm expecting 1,000 response, the excitement that we're going through and we're planning this. Let's take a step back, right? The email is stuck at 500 daily. And I want the AI to understand that it has to be sending these in sequence. If the AI goes into my list and notice that there's more than 500, then these days becomes task. And this is very important to understand that switch, right? If I have less than 500 people in the list, the AI will align itself with the ideas of days because it will be able to complete that task on the first day. 500, no hustle. I'm sending that 500. I'm pausing. Next day, I'm sending the other emails in that sequence, 500, and so on and so forth. However, when there's more than 500, this is what the AI is doing, right? It's basically going to consider that each one of these days or these email is a task, right? So you want to keep that. This is the rule that we're following. The AI will consider that each day is a task. The first one, which is set to be immediately sent out, I will start for the first 500 on day one. I am forced to stop, but I haven't completed the job. So the second day, when the light goes green, I will do another 500 and so on, so forth. This is why, for example, when you open the email that you have assigned to these campaigns while it's rolling out, and if your list is above 500, you will notice that at one point, it will start putting these notifications. You have reached your daily limit. You have reached your daily limit. You have noticed that in the inbox of your account when you're trying to roll out to a list above 500. It's not a system error. It's computer talk. We have the NowSite computer AI who's saying, hey, I'm trying to send. I have a job to do. I'm trying to send these emails. And the Google AI is saying, hey, buddy, you are maxed out for today, right? And the AI is not necessarily set on a clock, it's set on a task. So he's going to try repeating that and he's going to get blocked until the cycle opens up and green light, it's going to go for the next 500, right? So it's important to understand that. Coming back to the previous uh, frame, if I have 2,000 people in this list and I can only roll 500 a day, then I have to divide that 2,000 by 500 because that will be the number of days that will be between these emails. And because there's no delays between those emails, they are set one day apart. When the AI is done with these sequence, it will know, oh, I already have a task waiting on my table that should have been rolled out. So I'm going to go right into that new sequence, day two, task two, or task one in this case, and so on and so forth. 4 days after, task two. 4 days after, task three. And this is important for the spam of your email. Because when I say a long email or short email, it factors in two things: the amount of email in the sequence, but also the days that it will cover for it to complete. Make sense so far? Keisha, you had your hand up. I will answer.
No, you answered it. That
I
was my
answered it.
question.
Sometimes it's just that, eh? By the end of the explanation, we have our answer. Oh, well, that was, yes. Everybody is now on the right track. Consider this. And this is the golden rule. If the list that I'm using is under 500, the AI will adhere to the daily task one day after the other. If the list is bigger than 500, then it will start basically operating on a daily basis, finishing these tasks one at a time. Okay? Very important to understand because then you understand a little bit more of what you're doing when you're preparing a sequence for acquisition, what you're doing when you're monitoring a sequence for conversion and what you're doing when you're putting them in the retention list. So far, so good for everybody? Okay. So this is important because this allows you to have a little bit more clarity. Technically, when you are starting to understand, okay, what is my prospect journey? Technically, at the gate, when we're sending them a marketing asset, we have two goals. I want to acquire or convert. And you heard me talking about that often enough when I'm looking at our marketing asset, whether I'm creating a landing page, whether I'm creating a sales funnel or a website, the objectives are the same. I either want to acquire you or convert you. So in these cases, these are the first list that we're concerned with. But all in all, the client will go to this process from acquisition. Oh, I saw this. I'm interested. I want to book a meeting so we can talk and I can see if this will align with what I have in mind to do for my business with you. We book a meeting, we discuss, and I opt in. You will get me to experience the onboarding email or onboarding sequence. And once that is done, you will then put me on the retention list so that I can stay in the fold, moving me in our case, for example, from the My AI to the marketing AI and ultimately the rest of the tools. And in between, there might be some upsells, meaning that I started with the My AI, then I really want to get into the mix and start selling to these people. Well, opt in for the nav. It's an upsell, right? Oh, I want more emails for my email strategy, more email power. 1,500 is not enough. I wish that we will all get to that conversation, but we have to make sure that we get there the right way. But we will all get to that conversation. One email is not enough. I understand the strategy around one email. I have outlined the conversion process and such. Now I'm ready to replicate that across many emails, many business strategies. Okay, so eventually we'll come to that. And this is important. And that becomes the conversation around, for example, our power pack. It's an upsell. All right. So while I'm onboarding you piece by piece, service by service, keeping you in the fold, training you, making sure that you see success, this email sequence, the retention one, will give you that time. And this is where usually you can have yourself venture into very long email sequence spanning over a very long periods of time, right? Keep in mind that when we have done the full curve of this training session, I will be able to send you a complete retention email, onboarding, going to everything with exercises and such, something to keep you in the fold for some time until you have gone through all these little details. This is when you're on cruise control. And this is when I am no longer looking to engage with you, rather, you are engaging with me. This is also the dynamics that you will see happening between your list. At first, from acquisition to conversion, you're the one doing the client outreach, right? You're the one making sure that the customer feels welcome, loved, that he is basically properly brought in, introduced to the opportunity, onboarded, and then once he is in the retention list, he's the one reaching out because I'm sending you training. I'm asking you to come to the meetings. I'm sending you emails. I'm asking you to complete these sets of instructions. And when you're done, it's your honest to come. It's on the onus is on you to now come back to me for any type of questions. We reverse the dynamics at that point, right? So when you're planning your emails, keep that in mind. And this is why I keep saying the stronger your retention offer, the stronger your acquisition and conversation process will be. Because any question technically will be part of the retention sequence of emails. Whether what do I do after I signed up into this offer? this is what you're technically doing. Where do I go to meet? Where do I go to train? Where do I go to? I learn about this. Does this covered? How do I find it? Right? And this is when you have people on cruise control. Make sense so far? Okay. So very important, I think, is that conversation at the beginning, understanding what is happening as we are looking at our market as a general whole. How do we know naturally or understand naturally what will be the process as slicing these pies, right? Naturally, for example, coming back to the first frame, when we start out, this pie is all red in the sense that it's the acquisition, right? We need to go out there. This is where also there's a lot more um, urgency to accomplish, right? We want to get these numbers, right? So technically, when we start out, this whole circle we're seeing red. We need to acquire people. As we go through the process, we start basically creating a slice of green, right? And as we go through that slice of green process, we start creating that last slice, the magenta in this case, right? And the whole cycle would have us at one point reverse polarities in this pie, right? The greatest amount of people that we will have will be in that large. Well, the magenta will replace the red, right? The red will go into the space of the conversion and such. So things will move slightly. But at the beginning, this is what we're looking at. Everything is red. We need to start acquiring. And this is what we are doing. We're looking at segmenting this market from nobody knowing us to a few people following us to a few people regularly engaging with us. And once we have set this in motion, the idea is volume repeat to shift basically the polarity. And at one point, as I said, we're going to start capping out because the idea is that I want people on a regular basis to convert. And that means that I am ready to give us the service, the engagement that they deserve, bring them into the retention. And even if I have a set retention system where people are engaging with me when they need, well, if one or two people engage with me a week is great. But if I have 100 people constantly engaging with me, then I have reached a certain maturity in my system. I need duplication. And this is when we start talking about or thinking about the larger volumes, right? So be careful when you are starting out, always keep in mind this approach. It helps yourself make sense in what you're doing across the list. For example, coming back again to these webinar coaching levels and such. If I'm trying to acquire you for the first level of my course, you are in a pool. I'm going to get you to convert for the first level. Once you are in the first level, you will go through the process of training. And that's when you go from conversion to the retention list. You're probably being coached. At the end of that cycle, we're going to tell you, well, if everything is completed, you're now ready for level 2. And that's going to imply what I hinted at, the process of evaluating if the lessons, if the courses, if the exercise have all been done by the student, vouching for them to go into the second level. And that has us going back into a spin because the clients that are in the retention cycle, when they upsell, they go back to an acquisition process. I was done with the first level. Where do I go to sign up for the second level? Okay, this is the process that you will go prepare yourself. Once you do, you register, you go back into a new conversion list for level 2. You go into the retention cycle of the level 2 once you have been onboarded and repeat, right? So this is the basic sequence that we're working with. And this is what exponentially we are looking to repeat across lists, across industries, across business interests. So far, so good? Questions? I'm going to be finalizing this document and making it part of the course. And I'm going to also align it with practical exercises. We have a lot now. So when I will make these short demonstration. I will start referencing certain course elements, certain case studies that we have. And if I have done some videos, I will also list them and practical exercises. Go ahead, Robert.
So I do have something that I want to add to this, and this would be good for discussion, I believe. I'd love to get your take on it. And I'm not trying to circumvent what you're teaching because what you're teaching is textbook, right? Numbers don't lie. It's important to
Sorry.
understand the data and where he's coming up with these numbers. That's all going to vary by how your funnel is set up and what you have as far as your offer on the front end, of course. But when it comes to emails, you had mentioned in there doing 5 emails. So myself, from my understanding and from what I've seen over the years, you can only expect a 1% of people that would actually register or convert on that first email. Second touch goes up to 2%. Third touch goes to 5%. Fourth touch goes to 10%. Fifth touch goes to, I believe it's 20%. But anywhere from the 7th to the 12th touch in that email response, that conversion rate goes up to 80%. So, what are your thoughts on that when we're talking about just doing 5 emails? Because typically, I tell people if you're going to create a campaign to do it at least 12 days just for those numbers that we're talking about right here. And as I would think that as long as your list is under 500, then you shouldn't have any problem with it going out. And especially if it's only one email that's going out, right? The second thing that I wanted to touch on is to just say, too, if you do send out that email and you don't really get a response, don't be afraid to send it out a second time to try again, because not everybody's going to see your email the first time or click on it. And a lot of that is also going to depend on what that headline is in that email that's going to grab their attention and make it open. So if you could add to that, what do you
Absolutely. This is my thoughts. You're aligning yourself with my conversation just at a higher tier. I'll explain why. Here, for example, coming back to the depths of your sequence. Okay, we'll stop at 5. The idea here, especially for neophyte, like most of us here, is that we need to understand, review, and optimize. So that sequence of 5 is not going to stop there. I'm going to run it. I'm going to come back, check it, optimize, and rerun it again. Because remember, as long as you're in my acquisition list, you only have 2 choices. Either you unsubscribe, meaning that you permanently are saying, hey, I'm not doing this, or I'm going to keep on sending you these emails until you convert, right? So keep that in mind. The reason why, again, I would recommend starting with 5 is because you want to be able to be agile with what is happening, right? How do I increase the response? Because what you said was right. The first time I send people my look at it, not open, but they are not unsubscribing. Great result. Often enough, people will miss that part in our statistics, right? Here, let me go back to that to make it in full view. So you want to keep that in mind. Second thing, okay, the idea of length. Remember, yes, if the email, let me just, I'm trying to bring that email sequence live so I can discuss it as well. If the email sequence is going out to a list that is under 500 and you're actively monitoring that acquisition list, then yes, right? You factoring the numbers of days in a core. But if the list is growing to levels of above the 500, then you have to come back to that idea of tasks, right? And that will have a 5 email sequence span over 2 weeks, right? Because every 4 days, there is a 1 email that goes out, right? So what? Maybe 1 or 2 emails every 8 days to one person, right? So you want to keep that in mind as well. Once your list goes bigger, then the mechanic falls in line by itself as long as you have aligned yourself with that. Okay. And again, if we're doing based on the fact that our acquisition list is set to grow, because for example, today I went online and I nabbed 10 people, and then I prospect another 100. Where are they going? Into the same list, the acquisition list. And then I'm going to probe them with that email campaign to see who opts in. And that rule, regardless of what or levels or strength we are, there's always that percentage, which is usually lower volume than the total of the list. Right? So these, you are aligned with the conversation just at a higher level. Because you, for example, the 7 emails, the 12 email sequence, you have already tested that. You went through the first 5, you went to another 5, and you're like, okay, yeah, this sequence of 10, this sequence of 12 usually gets them converting at email 10. Right? This is when you can venture into longer emails. But the rule is still the same for everybody. Look at your email sequence at the beginning. And I say short, for me, 5 is short. For somebody else, 10 could be short. However, hey, when you're in the double digits, you're technically stretching the depths of it because following, remember that when you're planning these emails, it's not just writing content, it's outlining a strategy, monitoring the call to action, seeing how they convert. And this goes back to what you're doing. If I have a list 12,000 deep, I'm sending 500 on a regular basis, and it takes about 4 days to go through that list. Then during these 4 days, I can leave that list, that email campaign alone, and go look at my conversion gates. Are you coming through the conversion list? Are you going and opting in there in the other CRM? This is what I'm monitoring, right? And every 4 days, I've set myself a rhythm. Every 4 days, I'm going to come and look. Okay, it's that email sequence 2. I see that there's 1,000 people that have received it. These amount have opened. Are people unsubscribing? No. Okay, good. I can keep running that sequence until the end. Right? So it aligns with that. Just higher tier because, of course, you have a lot more experience than most of us, but that is the case. Okay. So keep
Oh,
that
I
in
love that.
mind.
I love that. Great explanation, brother. Love that.
Mhm. It's really once that it's just like that what who how, right? Once you have that match in sight,
Right.
everything else falls in line. Like, yeah, of course, I can't overwork the list, I can't overwork myself. And when I'm converting, it's hands-on, right? Because this is when the relationship is new. At any point the client can call you, hey, I was reading this and you said that and I'm a little confused, can we talk about it? Yeah, absolutely, book a meeting, right? Until they're like, you know what? I'm on cruise control. I'll call you when I need you. Just like you guys are treating me now. You're booking meetings when you need me. Oh, by the way, I had some clients that booked. I had an issue with power. I invited you and then fall short of the offer. When that happens, I'll usually send you an email or the email of the book line, letting them know what happened and offering a workaround, right? But that is it. When that process is happening, you are engaging the client more than they are engaging you because you want to make sure that you bring them to where they need to be. And this is why the conversion links tend to be very dynamic. All right. It's where, for example, I can move you from the first level to the second level. If you came in, looked at the content and say, I really like what you're delivering, but level 1 is not for me. It's more level 2. Okay, level 2. Okay, we'll talk about level 2. And then I'll move you to that offer and to that retention email or at that retention in the retention sequence, right? Because for example, if you have, like I've created an onboarding sequence of email where I make you discover the basics of social media, then get you into marketing, then get you into the higher tiers of conversation. If when you onboard with me, you come through and say, you know, I love the my AI, I love the marketing, but I already have that covered. What I'm interested in is what happens next. Perfect, boss. I get you to level 3. And even in my onboarding email sequence, I can decide at which level of that I'm going to start sending you conversation, right? Remember that, for example, when you are in the contact, and this is coming back now to the use of our CRM, when you're in the CRM, for example, and you're emailing, oh, this one doesn't, oh yeah, no, this one doesn't have one. Find myself.
And
So
as
when
you're talking about that, I'm thinking to myself, well, there's no reason if you know what you're doing, like myself, that you couldn't take that 7 to 12 and boil it down to 5, as long as you're like, I want to say too publicly, like recommend that you're giving something of value on that first email, something for free to keep them or have them hooked. And then by the fifth email, at least book some kind of one-on-one meeting or Zoom.
yes,
You know?
absolutely. Remember, the most important part of the connection is that moral exchange, right? I don't have to give you anything, but I'm getting value from you. Who would receive that? Who would refuse that? I'm looking for something. You have that interest or the object of my interest in hand. I'm still not sure, but I don't have to risk anything. You're giving me your time. You're giving me value. You're giving me a chance to discover, right? There's, I don't like to use that example, but it's a very beautiful metaphor, right? How do you trap a monkey? Very simply, you have a small box with a hole big hand to big enough for them to slide their hand in. And in there's a fruit. But once they slide their hand in and grab the fruit, it's a fist. They can't remove their hand from the box. So as long as they want the fruit, they're stuck with the box. It's a funny trick. It's a joke, but it's true. If you have a small box and you have a small hole and you have something in there that you want, then there's a whole equation before you to get it out. And if you're putting your hand directly in there and grabbing the fruit, well, you can't get rid of the box. So this is very important. Not that our clients are to be considered monkeys, no. But the idea is that if I give you something of interest to hold on to, you're holding on to a relationship that I'm building with you. And
Now,
as long as, go ahead.
you know what came to my mind, and I'm sure all of us have seen it before, is those videos where you see those people where there's gold inside the box and they had to reach in. There's just that circle. That's what
Yep.
came to my mind.
Those, if you want it, it's there. You can see it, right? And that creates that interest, right? Very important. And again, coming back to sequence of emails, if you, for example, like I said, you talk to me and you are on the second level, then when I decide to send you, I will select the second level and on. So I get you where you are in your journey. Okay. So very important again, come back to that. It always starts, and for example, even in the business uh, profiles, I already started seeding in that conversation, that idea of segmentation. The whole of my market is comprised of senior, young adults, teenagers. Who is my product good for? If it's good for everybody, great. The conversation will belong to specific years. The conversation that I'll have with my senior clientele or my elite clientele won't be the same as we'll have with my young or mature, but not yet fully grown clientele, would be very different from the neophyte, the young ones, the babies stumbling into this space. The conversation, the email, the approach, the delivery will adjust itself, right? And this is all the idea of segmentation. Often enough, we miss that across the board. We come in very eagerly wanting to conquer the world. And I always say that to my clients, hey, we're going to conquer that world, but one piece at a time. You want to take over your country? Well, start with your neighborhood, then your city, then the next city. It goes into that expanding circle, right? That expanding cycle. Always like that. And it allows yourself better structure in everything that you're doing. Questions, comment, add on, shares, experience.
Great stuff, brother. Great stuff. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I will clean up the document. I'll make it available. But once the light has come on, you can't turn it off. Right now, I doubt that you coming back into space will look at your list and the amount of people in this list the same way. You most likely will start considering this all contact section a different way. right? Because this is, for example, the whole of my pie. Everybody is in here, everybody can be found. But when I go into the lists, then I'm looking at segments who have converted. Or is this a general list that is a segment of my overall pool based on of an interest? I have people that are interested in marketing. I have people that are interested in wellness. Well, I have a list specifically for those in marketing. I have a specific for those in wellness or consumers. I have a pool of prospects. Some are consumers. That's the segment that I'm going to put them in or consider approaching them with the conversation strategy and all that in mind. Or they are opportunity seekers, right? So every time this is a mechanic that you are doing, even when you're greeting a client, consumer or, okay, consumer, then this is the list, this is the process, this is the retention cycles, right? From the beginning, apply these, it helps you. Well, it's funny because what you apply when you go out in the field is what you have set forth across your system. Preparation. Good? Questions. I'm happy when there's no questions, but I'm also fearful when there's no questions. I'm like, are they getting it true? Because last time the pushbacks were crazy and I loved it. Like, oh, I need to fight it. I need to start another conflict, right? Maybe I'll start that. I'll go left to have you guys say, no. And I say, hey, it was a trap you guys were following. Great job. Great job. Okay.
That's
Perfect.
hilarious.
Next time, if everybody understands this properly and will be following through, next time, go ahead, Keisha.
My only question is, how soon can you get this up for me to download it?
Ah, most likely, I will see if between today and tomorrow there's more to add on. So by Wednesday, Thursday, you'll have it as part of the course. Good?
No problem, no problem.
Perfect. Audrey?
Yes, sir, Virgil. This I having a question because my mind is expanded so much, wrapping my head around it, but it really brings everything into perspective for me. This has been incredible. I do have a question, two questions. That one is related, one not. You talked about our CRM in NowSite
Mm-hmm,
and our CRM externally. Now, I do have an external CRM.
mm-hmm.
Now that you brought that up, I'm seeing maybe the value of utilizing it. I've had it for other reasons. And I was considering that maybe I didn't need it from our last trainings last week. But now, when we need to move those clients from acquisition to conversion and then take them out for retention, you said bring them back. That piece, I guess I may really need to maintain that external CRM. If you could just touch a little bit on that, getting
Absolutely,
them in at
absolutely,
acquisition. Okay, that, and then I
absolutely.
have one other quick question. Yes, sir.
Well, put the other question, so I'll answer both of
Okay,
them
the
in
other
line.
question is
They might
super
even
easy.
relate. Mm-hmm,
No, last week you went quickly, but you did show a place in NowSite where I saw the list of all of your, of many, many of your business links. Not when we creating a business profile, but just literally the links, like the link of your business card and other links. I tried to find that. I don't know where it is. I asked
okay.
the bot, and they were they went to the business profile thing. So where
Okay.
is that located?
I'll cover that. It basically
Okay.
there's different way of finding it. Okay, and also I'll answer that in perspective of the first question. Okay, so for example, if I open the first one to find it quickly, you can open any contact, go to message because I believe you were looking at the or you were thinking about the files and the list that were the links that were attaching in the hot messages, right? So here
Yes.
you can open up any of those, and what you're looking for is this one, the attachment those
Ah,
trombones they call it, Rambones, or
Okay.
file attachments. When you click on it, it's going to open up this library. And is this what you're looking at?
Yes,
Perfect.
there it
Now,
is.
now, technically, what you should have here is also your link for your other CRM, the conversion, right? Because here, for example, you're going to have this, and I'm going to send that to somebody trying to get them to convert. The idea is that all your opportunities already have a CRM, meaning that when the client accept, they end up somewhere there in whatever activity you are offering. Remember, for those promoting NowSite, right? When somebody opts into your offer, they will appear in your dashboard here, right? So
Right,
technically, on the other sides, you should have a dashboard. And if your opportunity is complete, you should have some kind of auto respond or sequence in which it will send the clients after. Because all the opportunities that we offer have an onboarding process for whoever you are referring to, right?
right,
In cases like that, if your opportunity has an onboarding process, has things that are already set in stone, and this is usually the difficulty because I'll go to a CRM there, and it's going to force me to follow certain things without giving me the agility to be able to add more, right? And this is usually where we're forced to, okay, well, I want to do something. Just like the marketing asset that they gave us, they give you one link, do with it what you will. But then when you come into Now site, you can take this link and create another series of marketing assets around it, right?
right,
So same thing. When the client is sent over there, you will note, keep in mind that in essence, if you have that type of process, you then will need two lists in NowSite. The acquisition list, the retention will happen, the conversion, sorry, will happen first. They'll go that outside CRM. They will get the business dealt as it is set over there. And at the end of that process, you will download that list, bring them back into the CRM of NowSite and go to the retention process. They could work in tandem, meaning, for example, that I'm going to send you to that CRM outside of NowSite, but from experience, journeying, going to that journey myself, I understand that at step one, you have this problem. At step two, you have this problem. So as I'm sending you there, I'm also going to send you a retention campaign, coaching you to it and giving you the ways, the how to come back to me for questions as you're going through that, right?
I
And
see.
in the end, ultimately, this is what we are now offering when we get people into these team environments. Go there,
Right,
learn the process, and if you have a problem, come back in this space, and I've created already something, put it in place for you to get your answers and how to contact me. Because now in the retention, we have reversed the polarity. You are engaging me. And if you're not engaging me often enough, I know that you're not following the process, so I will engage you. Because if you're doing it properly, there's already some set things that you will do across the journey that will make my system ping. Oh, he went from, Audra went from level one to level two naturally with no questions. You know what? Let me send her a good job. Keep going. And remember, if you have questions, you can always come to me. And I let you reinforcement, push you down the road, keep going. Right? If I see
got it.
Audrey stuck at level one and has not moved from since, and that's only like a week cycle, then I have to come back and say, Audrey, are you having difficulties?
Right,
You want to book a meeting? Let's go
right.
over the separate step. Okay?
Yeah,
Perfect. So
excellent.
always think about that. Anyways, you this is how you conquer anything. You have to break it apart and start taking piece by piece it in. This is how you understand something. I gave you whole knowledge. Well, let me start from this part and piece by piece bring it in. So it's the same thing. We are always segmentating or slicing our pies. Good?
Awesome.
It's the
Excellent.
bell. It's the bell. I'm almost
Thank
sad
you.
it's finished, but tomorrow we continue. So go over these. prepare your questions, and tomorrow we'll go into that arena, test, see what happens. And case studies, things that you have done that need correction, could benefit everybody. So everybody, tomorrow, let's think about that. By tomorrow, the document will be done. I'll share it, and if there's more, I'll add. And will give me also a chance to think about a simple but effective exercise. Whether you're starting or you're already rolling something, we'll try to bring something together so that everybody can follow through and see what result we bring out of that.
Let's
Good?
have an amazing day, my friends.
Absolutely. Let's go out there and do what we must, right? If anything, let's get the word out and let's nab on people. Let's prepare these acquisition lists because at one point we're going in for conversion. Okay? Perfect.
Excellent
Perfect.
Awesome.
training. Thank you so much.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Put it this way, you are bringing out the best in me because these questions came through the week and I was like, okay, we need to talk about that. Perfect. Okay. So see you tomorrow. A lot of questions in hand.
Thanks, Virgil.
You're welcome.